Well, hello and good morning to you. Hope this finds you well. It's at least a sunny day at the moment. Who knows what is to come? What we have to come this morning is a very special retail session with the University of Bath School of Management, and we're absolutely delighted to be able to discuss this topic in great detail. My name is Greg Ingham from Bath Life's publisher Media Clash, and thanks for joining. Yeah, it's a stimulating session about retail. We'll have multiple insights from retail trends, consumer psychologies, store design, research, effective inflation, online buying, in-store technology, omni-channels, and much more. And the university is also very keen to help play its part in helping develop retail thinking here in Bath. So please do reach out either during this session today or subsequently as part of the sort of academia in action approach that they're very keen on. We'll also include news of a significant collaboration by the university with various American universities on a School of Management retail event. We'll cover how and why local retailers might wish to engage with that. And of course, that broader point about the School of Management helping develop retail thinking. Stimulation, information, and prompts to action await you today as we delve into those topics. I'll be talking in a moment with Jens Nordfält, Senior Lecturer at the School of Management, and Fredrik Holmvik, Retail Consultant. Please do send your questions and thoughts using that Q&A button below, and add your company name if you wish, or wherever you're from, to your question, or be anonymous if you prefer. And I gather we've had a couple already. Please note this surgery is being recorded and will be available on our Bath Life YouTube channel this afternoon. Some news from Bath Life. These business surgeries are bespoke deep dive sessions showcasing expertise and thinking through discussion. Please look out for more in our Discovery series with the University of Bath School of Management. There'll be 3, possibly 4 more before the end of March. And if you wish to be involved as a company in these surgeries, they're covered editorially in Bath Life and on Twitter. And yeah, they'll have that enduring value on our Bath Life YouTube channel, which is becoming a real repository of interesting insights. Business clubs, the in real life version of these. Our next one is on Monday lunchtime, 12th of Monday lunchtime in December. It is 12th of December at the Royal Crescent Hotel. It features, as you can see, Richard Cherry, highly experienced property expert who ran countryside properties for some years and now chairs the Stonewood Group. Bath Life news, Bath Life Awards news, they're returning on March 23rd, but ahead of that, we're running a special How to Benefit webinar next Tuesday at 2 p.m. And by the way, if you really fancy it, if you held your camera to the screen now, you could register for that. It's a free event. It's half an hour or so. It'll cover how to win, to give you tips on nominations. We'll be discussing commercial opportunities, and we'll have all the key dates for the nominations, the grand reveal, reception, and awards for what we hope will be, once more, an unrivaled and effective and uber glamorous way to celebrate all that's best about Bath, including, of course, 2 key themes of today, retail and education. Also want to flag the return of the Property Symposium coming back in April. We're focusing on the city of the future as well as the future of the city. So it's new city thinking, which I'm sure we'll be talking to the university about as well. What will be different about your cities in 2030, 2040? Impacts now for planning, developers, architects? How has the pandemic accelerated thinking? There's much to cover. Likewise, we partner with the uni on EntreConf, which is our entrepreneurs conference, which continues to develop from conference to videos to intimate dinners with revelatory discussions. Our next is by invitation. It's an event on December 5th for female entrepreneurs in conjunction with Burgess Salmon and Coots. Please do let us know if you'd like to be involved with that. It'll be a deep dive exploration, both of theory and practice, about entrepreneurialism for women. And I do want to emphasize the point about the University of Bath School of Management, strong supporter of EntreConf and new business thinking. For all of us, as it says here, the future is unwritten indeed. The Bulls will be bounding back on the weekend of the 30th of June. Perfect social business occasion, raised a ton of money for local charities, over 700,000, maybe 750,000 to date. Please do talk to us about being involved in June next year. Bath Life, right at the heart of all we do is Bath Life. We're really proud to publish this magazine celebrating all the good stuff in Bath, especially in our 20th year. One other thing about this, we will be having a bumper combined Christmas and New Year issue as well. So please do talk to our team editorially or commercially if you wish to be involved. Thanks for your support. Right, let's do this. Let's introduce our speakers for today. Let's bring forward Jens and Fredrik, who will be on screen right now. Just a good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you. You?
Very good. I'll just, for the sake of those who may not know in detail, I'll give you a quick run through of your bios. Jens' research for the university has been digging deep into understanding how customers really think and behave, as well as examining the potential for emerging in-store technologies. Spent years looking at what makes us buy, why we might or might not spend longer in stores than we intend to, how in-store design influences our purchases. There's some remarkable research around that. And of course, as our shopping has moved in part or maybe in whole online, he's had to think very deeply about omni-channels, integrating all the different places and spaces where consumers interact with marketeers. Fredrik, good morning. Long retail history, started off working for Unilever. It says here, somewhere where it was warm and they manufactured ice cream. Well, there you go. Moved to work for Accenture, helping retail clients, head of media at Sweden's largest retailer, grocery store chain called ICA, where Jens also happens to run a store. In other words, there's deep knowledge of retail here between them. And they've run in-store experiments and digital signage and more, now working as a consultant in close collaboration with a whole variety of companies, including McDonalds and Statoil. Good morning to you each. Just one last thing before we get going, do please send through your questions using the button below. I'd like to begin with a note from McKinsey, trying to analyse some of the effects of the pandemic or side effects of the pandemic on retail. Their note recently said, because of the pandemic, a lot of consumers had to try new stuff and new brands, and they figured out, hey, they're not so bad. So the ability and willingness to try new stuff has disproportionately grown in the past few years. Do you agree? And do you think that's likely, if anything, to accelerate?
Do you want to start, Fredrik, or should I? Yeah, I can start and then you can jump in and correct me. I think it's true, but it's also not true. It's true to the extent that, as you say, the pandemic and the lockdown was a true shock, and it forced companies to really rethink when e-commerce just, well, depending on industry, doubled, tripled, quadrupled, increased a lot. Companies had to rethink everything. Like in my store, we had to find new way because my store is in Sweden, but like here in the UK, all the slots for getting deliveries got occupied pretty fast. So we had to buy a van. We had to set up channels alongside e-commerce so people could text us and we could deliver. We had to find new ways of pickup points and everything. Or many times as a grocery retailer, you have to make sure that the products are chilled or frozen. So
And Jens, I'd like to just push on the point about, do you think the appetite for experiencing new products has accelerated because of the pandemic?
That too, but I'm an academic. I'm allowed to use many words to explain things. But so yes, I think companies really were forced to think new, and really from a blank paper. We had to think dramatically new, not just fine-tune. We had to think totally new. From the shopper's perspective, trying new products and so on, yes, that's also true, because and it's still the case that since people had to work from home many times, they started to not go to restaurants for lunch and so on, but they rather started to prepare their lunches at home to a greater extent. So many of my colleagues have, almost doubled their volume due to that. People buy more groceries to use for cooking, well, 3 meals a day, and that makes people buy different products. So for sure, more ready-made meals or ready-made dishes, and when it comes to kind of a silly fact, but when it comes to clothes, the sales of trousers, everything you wear below the waist, has gone down, whereas the sales of tops and anything that's visible on a screen has gone up. So yes, it has been a lot of changes, and but I've also, the not true part is that I was at a retail meet this weekend in London, and there seemed to be some kind of agreement on that. C-level people had taken the opportunity to digitalize a bit too much. So now that sort of half of the e-commerce market share increase, when that's going back to physical stores, the physical stores and the staff and everything
we'll come on to that, both duality, but also how that's attempted to make that seamless. I just like to ask Fredrik at this point that given that if not reset, but profound change that all of us experience in our different ways, how do you think retailers might attempt to be more aware of customers' appetite for the new in whatever their offering is? Because there are definitely, it seems to be a greater propensity to experiment, maybe through forced circumstance.
To go to your first question and which you're elaborating on now, I think we had a huge change in all the behaviors we had, and especially in countries that have quite a heavy lockdown. I'm living in Sweden. We didn't have that heavy lockdown, but we still have huge changes in the consumer behaviors, and also trying out new products, as you're saying. But it's falling back now. If you look at the e-commerce market in Sweden, the number of parcels being sent to customers is actually growing, but the turnover of the e-commerce market has gone down. So it's coming back. People are going back to the stores. And to answer your first question, no, I don't think so. I think we will fall back to the old pattern more and more. So I don't think we will experience that much new. But the things we have tried. So that will stay. But I think we're coming back to what we had before the pandemic in a quite heavier impact than everybody forecasted.
Yeah.
So
thanks. Jens, you've used the expression retail is applied marketing. How so?
Well, I'm thinking, I'm in a constant dialogue with retail companies who experience that in their staff, they have two types of people. One kind of person is the person who started to work from, after school in the store, and who really knows the KPIs that are central to stores. It could be that you have to, replenish and fill the shelves, but it could also be that you perhaps measure sales per hour, sales per square meter. So you think about turnover, you think about using volume displays to sell things. So you have that in the back of your head always. You know what the store is about, how to sort of arrange things to make it look nice and so on. And then the other share, or the other part, or the other cohort of people among your staff are the ones that are trained at the university, and they have there studied brands, perhaps marketing, advertising, and so on, marketing communication. And to some extent, or for some reason, in academia, it's rarely so that you study sales as a part of marketing. So you can study a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in marketing without ever getting in contact with planogram thoughts. I mean, how you organize a shelf, or store layouts, or even promotion campaigns where you try to push items or products through the supply chain by working with discounts and price signs and stuff like that. So when I said that, I meant that there's a huge part of marketing that we miss out traditionally in academia, because we focus on the communication aspect of it. We don't focus on the moving products aspect of it. So that's why I think when you go to the store, when you see how products are displayed and so on, that's applied marketing.
Let's go on to a difficult topic of inflation, which is prevalent pretty much everywhere, but very marked in the UK. It's clearly bad for consumers, but is it only bad for retailers, or are there some positives? Either or both.
Should I start, Fredrik? And then
you try. It's a difficult question. Yeah.
But you can interrupt me, Greg, if I'm too long. Okay, it can be good, it can be bad. So in a store, in a grocery store, at least the size of store that I'm sort of operating and the most familiar with, weekly we used to have around 30 items that we needed to change prices on. But the last half year or so, 8 months, it's been 3,000 per week. That's like more than half the assortment every week that we have to change prices on, meaning that it's a lot of work. So if you don't have digital price signs, it's massive. So that's a problem, and it's a problem with knowing the market price. So we try to keep an eye open for our main competitors, how much is their coffee costing, but there's always a lag in that. So it's very difficult to know what prices you should have and all the labor behind increasing the prices. But at the same time, as you say, you can gain on it. So if you don't have short dates on stuff, if it's not fresh food, you can actually buy and store. And there used to be a time when, for instance, coffee, the inflation on coffee was extreme. And then many stores rented warehouses to buy huge amounts of coffee and save it. And, they could increase their margins with 15-20% by making sure they had huge stock of those items. So it's both and.
Fredrik, inflation?
Sorry, I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, inflation. Are there any elements which are potentially good for retailers?
Yeah, but I mean, I would say very much dependent on what your position in the market is and what your brand stands for. If you look at Lidl and these players today, they gain much more volume today than they probably should have. And even though a little bit high-end player have good prices, people don't believe they have. So I would say these players are gaining market share more than they should in this type of environment.
Let's turn to the mindset of shoppers and some elements of how and where they buy. There's been much talk in recent times about experiential, that retail itself needs to be an experience and end in itself, beguiling perhaps. But aren't consumers essentially trending the other way towards transactional? How can you attempt to navigate those absolute twin poles?
I would say yes. Of course, price is more important today. You will look at more campaigns. You will pick more campaign products, especially if you go into grocery retail today. So yes, definitely. There is not that much experience in a food store anyhow, but yes, if you go into more like clothing and fashion retail where you have a conversion rate around 20%, I still think it's important. But again, price point matters today.
Yeah. Jens, you're about to dive in.
Yeah, like always, right? Well, there is something called the wheel of retailing, meaning that you often start off as a discounter and then you add service, you add assortment, you add things when you learn and you sort of develop as a retailer. And I've seen the wheel of retailing spinning the whole 360 and then sort of go back again. So I think there will be a time also after this cost crisis and the kind of inspiration that we've gotten used to seeing before the pandemic, perhaps it'll come back. And I also think that people, they really rely on stores for inspiration. I think that's one of the reasons why physical stores come back from or now regain market share from online, because in the online store you have to know a little bit more what you need, what you want, because you have to sort of be able to search yourself. You can't just go into the store, spin your head around and see what's there. So people need stores for inspiration, and inspiration can be simple things. Like we did this test with Coca-Cola, and traditionally when you combine Coca-Cola or a soft drink with something, it's a salty snack or something that you sort of consume together. That's the traditional merchandise combination that you display. But in this case, we found that the best product to display next to a 2-liter Coca-Cola was a 50 centiliter Coca-Cola, because people who are in the mindset of buying soft drinks, they buy the big bottle, the cheap, where it's cheaper per ounce or per volume to consume at home, but they also feel the urge to drink something now. So they buy two bottles of the large bottles, but one little one to consume on the bus or in the car on the way home.
We'll come on to healthy purchasing trends in a moment. So it's almost the obverse of the point you're making. But also, I want to pick up the prompted sales, which is this. Of course, all forms of retailers will want to maximize their yields. Fredrik, you touched on this briefly already. The yields per customer, the yields per visit, even if that thinking doesn't always surface overtly. And I'm thinking particularly some of our independents here in Bath. But which do you think, as a psychological point of view, is more effective in prompting purchases? Offers in store or offers online? And yes, it's a simplistic dichotomy, and I hesitate before putting it before an academic, but there we go. You get the point.
Yeah. Well, as any kind of retailer, you make a division between attracting traffic and trying to increase the basket size. And driving traffic is what you can use different channels. You can use the online store to drive traffic to the physical store. You can use the physical store to drive traffic online. So and it's often shown in studies that that's one of the strengths with having many channels, that they drive traffic to each other. But given that you have a footfall online or offline that you're at least somewhat pleased with, I'd say that, it's not impossible at all to increase the basket size. Two-thirds of what customers actually buy when they're shopping is something that they have realized they should buy by being prompted while they're in the store. So if you ask someone upon entering a store, what are you going to buy today? And then you check what they actually purchase, 2/3 of what they will leave the store with is different from what they said that they would buy. So I'd say that in-store, I think, is still more powerful, even though you have to also have the tools to drive traffic to the store.
That's an incredible stat. I'm trying hard not to extrapolate for any personal experience, but the idea that directionally you've got a rough idea of what you want, but then as much as 2/3 is prompted one way or another is remarkable. So that argues, I suppose, for getting people across the threshold, or the physical threshold of the store. Is if anything, do you think it's more important than getting them online in the first place?
I think if you look at the impulse share of a purchase online, it's often huge as well. But it's more that if you're online, say, come back to buying any kind of drink again. If you're in a physical store, you perhaps limit your purchases because it's heavy, it's bulky, it's inconvenient. But online, it's not different buying 5 from 1. Well, it's a cost difference, but it doesn't mean any more inconvenience for you. So any kind of volume discount and so on is more convenient online. So you can, that's one of the many reasons why you see that online purchases are often 3 times the size of offline purchases. So I think you can also work with prompting customers online, but you need to do it slightly differently than you do it offline.
Yeah, let's come further into. Go on. Fredrik,
I would say, one very evident thing is if you start looking at conversion rates. I mean, if physical stores, no one is below 15 that I ever seen, and up to 100% if you go to a food store. If you look at online conversion rates, we're talking to 1, 3, 4, 5%. And it's completely different. So I would say you have a huge possibility to prompt more sales in a physical environment than you have in an online environment. That's one thing. The only segment I've seen within retail which goes the other way around is pharmacy. Pharmacy online usually kicks 4 or 5 products into the basket online, offline 1 or 2. But the conversion rate is still high, 70-80% in the physical pharmacy. But that's the only retail part I've seen that actually is the other way around.
Do you think that's potentially an element of personal embarrassment, that you don't wish to show that you need X in a retail store? All right. What do you describe to that ratio change?
I'm talking Swedish data now, so I don't know if that would apply for the British market. But anyhow, in Sweden, you go to pharmacy and you need to buy something. There is no one moving into a pharmacy for shopping around. That's not happening. And the online players is doing much more over-the-counter products. They're pushing more, and they're trying to do much more to sell other things than just what you have in traditional pharmacies. So it's very evident. I even challenged a pharmacy player in Sweden to take out the complete store, take out all square meters, and only have a desk to meet the customer and serve them what they need, and use all the other space as an e-commerce local supply chain. That thought was too mind-blowing, but let's see if it happens, because they don't need retail space. They can throw it up to be serious. You don't need it.
Well, if there are any pharmacists watching today, you heard it here first. You don't necessarily need, in fact, you don't at all need your retail space. You need a counter and a terrific e-commerce backup.
That's a pharmacy. That's the only place I've seen it. But you can actually change that completely, and it's very interesting.
Yeah. A mild hesitation on this one, but another form of retailing I know was behind one of the biggest success stories in Bath in recent years, which was Love Honey. They hadn't wholly realised when they launched that when it came to sex toys, there was a far bigger market who would buy, offline or anonymously, online and anonymously, than it was would actually go into any form of retail environment. Moving swiftly along from that, I want to bring in our good friend, anonymous attendee, who's popped up with this question. What are your thoughts on Black Friday, scourge or saviour? Is it net a real benefit, or does it sort of corral sales into a period and then you get fallout either side? It's a zero-sum game.
I wouldn't say zero-sum, but you have both. I mean, sales come originally from clearances. So when you had an old assortment and you needed to get rid of it, then you lowered the prices after Thanksgiving in this case, or Christmas or something like that. So there is part of it is that you can actually use as a shopper. You can use Black Friday or any kind of clearance sale or season sale to sort of find bargains. But also, of course, the brands and the retailers have realized this. So they are using it as a marketing tool, and they discount items just to sell more and attract attention and all that. And to some extent, I mean, it can be good and it can be bad for companies depending on how you treat things. I know, for instance, when I was a student, actually, I was working, I wrote a thesis about After Eight, the chocolate, mint chocolate. And at that time, the owner of that brand was Roundtree Mac. No, it wasn't. It was, an owner who totally emptied that brand of value because they had so deep discounts for Christmas and Easter. So shoppers bought the products only on when there was a discount, and then they ate it because they, it lasted. So they bought 2 boxes before Christmas, ate those until Easter, bought 3 boxes before Easter, and ate that during the fall. So they had to file for bankruptcy. And now it's owned by Nestlé, and they have treated it differently. So it can really be a trap for brands, and it can also be a trap for shoppers. But you can find bargains, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's you go.
Yeah, I would say it's an opportunity. By the end of the day, it's another shopping weekend that has been introduced to our calendars, and if you do it right, you will make good money out of that as well. But you need to of course control your discount levels, so on and so forth. And basically, when you're in retail, I mean, if you're not high brands within retail, you always have a percentage that will drive the average sale of that product over the year. And then you need to move across different weekends, different discount periods, and also periods with the ordinary price point, and do it in a good way. So I would say Black Week helps retail if they perform it in the right way, because it's another shopping occasion that people focus on. And of course, they don't sell that much just before it, and then it goes up and it goes down a little bit, and then Christmas comes. So yes, I believe it's right.
Right, and within all of that, there is the competitive set, I guess, the marginal competition against direct competitors, and the sort of implied competition against any other product or service you're hoovering up money, essentially. I want to bring in a Bath retailer who's moved from a physical store to an online presence. That's Polly Jackson. Got a good question from her in a sec. But I want to talk about customer research. Less so perhaps academic research, and we will come on to that, some of your quite extraordinary findings. But what do you think are some of the key areas that Bath retailers, local retailers in the city, watching this ought to be aware of? What should they be asking their customers?
Are we thinking about retailers who are only online or physical stores? I didn't get
predominantly physical stores, that they have the opportunity for dialogue in a very different way. It is face to face. There's trust. There's whatever else goes with that. If you were a store in Bath, how would you be, aside from the meeting and greeting and attempting to match someone's needs with what your offering is, what would you be seeking to find out from your customers?
That's a very good question, in the sense that it's very sort of tricky, I think. I'm thinking I would always like to learn a bit more about where does the money come from. So do I have regular customers, or do I have tourists or people who just happen to be here and they're here this weekend and then they're gone? So I'd like to sort of analyze my sales into loyals and other kinds of shoppers. What you typically find, but I guess Bath can be a little bit different, but you often have this Pareto principle that 20% of the shoppers stand for 80% of the volume. So if you have that, then I would definitely try to, again, a little bit depending on what kind of assortment I have, but I would try to set up some kind of program for my loyal shoppers. And it could be some kind of loyalty discount, or it could be and that can be done really easily. It can be, with a little paper card or something like that you used to have with coffee shops, that every 10th coffee for free. But I would definitely try to start to learn more about my customers. Are they loyal customers? How can I treat my loyal customers even better to make sure that they keep coming to me? And then I would sort of focus my investigation and the questions that I would ask on those who are the ones who actually bring me my revenues. So yeah, I start by doing that little segmentation exercise.
And Fredrik, were you running a store? What type of questions would you be asking about? I don't know, the relevance of people's time. When is the optimal time for them to be buying, or what would you be asking?
Yeah, I was thinking about the question as such, asking. I mean, the physical meeting with customers, I mean, the best one you can have, and you get 5 or 10 minutes of the time. Online, you get 2 seconds. So, I mean, just answering their questions, talking to them, interacting with them, that builds your brand loyalty by definition, if you serve them well, of course. So, yeah, just meeting them, just talk to them. I mean, that's, to me, is very important, and have enough people in the store, if compares to the revenue and so on and so forth. But so you actually meet all the customers. I mean, that's the best marketing tool you have.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's quite a salutary thing for all of us. You know, as we are all emerging, have been emerging from these pandemic times, the role that first reputation, but then relationships and time spent with customers and clients, of course, leading to revenues. And to your point,
I usually try to when we talk to with marketing and brand, and time spent in relation with the brand, that is a KPI you don't have on the marketeer's desk today, but it should be there. If you look at the way much time we spend in a physical store compared to online, and how we interact with the brand, there's a huge value. But that KPI is not present yet.
There you go. And I'm thinking that across multiple business areas, time as a KPI.
Because that's what Facebook is doing. That's what Instagram is doing. That's what all social media. That's their KPIs. That's how they bring their money in. And I think we should bring that into actual retail as well.
Yeah, well, who knows?
And we find that now, after the pandemic, because we do large eye tracking studies where we trace people in the store and see what they look at and which categories they go into and so on. And we see that even though the traffic is back, the average time spent in the store has gone down with almost a third. So people are more careful about their time, and they visit fewer departments and so on. So it's obvious that time has become more precious after the lockdown.
There's almost an X and Y axis there. For many consumers, time is so precious, they want as little time as possible in a store, be able to navigate, go, as they can do online. But from a retailer point of view, you want probably more time, to your point, Fredrik, about time being a KPI. I want to bring in 2 retailers' questions. The first, as mentioned, is from Polly Jackson. Says hello, it's very polite. Hi, Jens and Fredrik. She's just made the shift, as mentioned, from having a physical retail place to attempting to build up her online shop. Given your comments about needing only a counter in an e-commerce platform for pharmaceuticals, I wonder what your opinion was on this concept for homewares and interiors. Do you think solely online would work as well? That's Polly from Whole Lot of Knots.
Well, I think both Fredrik and I own e-businesses, so we both know the potential traps. And you know, I'd like to use an example to answer that question. Amazon is, alongside Alibaba, the by far largest online players in the world. And Amazon is growing by purchasing category or market share leaders in each new category. So they find who's the biggest e-commerce player in that category, and they buy them and so on. That's how they grow. But Jeff Bezos has said it's easy to buy the first conversion online in the category, but it's very hard to get people to come back. So therefore, Amazon's largest investment ever has been to purchase or invest in a physical store chain. So they need the physical store chain, Whole Foods Market, to drive traffic to their Amazon Prime and their Amazon website. So even the largest e-tailer in the world need physical stores to attract traffic, drive traffic to the online stores. So I think it's a good idea to start to be digitally active and perhaps start to find ways to deliver e-commerce. But I think that if you have good footfall and if you have, a decent store, I think that's the greatest source you have to drive traffic online. And beware, not many e-tailers are profitable. We use my e-store as a complement to the physical store. So if if we have a 3 times as wide assortment online as we do offline. So if someone is asking about a special sauce or mustard or something that we don't carry in the offline store because it would just be, you know, wasted space, we can have it online and we can deliver it fairly quickly, but we put the order, the purchase order, when we get the order from the customer. So make sure that you sort of do the calculations right, because online is very expensive, the picking costs and everything. In any kind of retail, more than half of the logistics costs happen in the store. So it's not the transportation, not the lorries, not the cargo freights or whatever. It's in the store. It's the manual handling that's bringing logistics costs, and that's handed over to you as an e-tailer if you start doing e-tail business.
And Fredrik, your thoughts on that specific point of Polly's about homewares and interiors, potentially the counter approach and backed by a strong e-commerce business. Could that fly?
Yeah, I think so. But I think very much being present in both areas, and I strongly believe if you have a physical presence going online, I think that's I strongly believe in that, because you have a place where people actually can visit you, especially in that category. It's not that easy to ship on e-commerce, just the logistics, so on and so forth. And secondly, that's products you want to see, touch, and feel. That's my viewpoint. But still, if you have the online store, you're open 24/7. You can always serve your customers, and you can serve them in different ways. So I strongly believe you should do both. And you can also see e-commerce players that goes offline, as Jens is talking about, and they gain when they do that. And otherwise, you need to be out there all the time. So yeah, I strongly believe you should have both. And if you have a good physical presence and adding on your e-commerce store on that, I think that's the way to go. And don't take away the physical store, never.
And you could argue that interplay between the two, the omni-channel approach, if anything, arguably plays even more so to Bath. Bath has a very peculiar footfall pattern. There's something like, I think the figure is 7 million visitors in good times a year, in a population of 90,000 locally. It's got the highest disparity bar Venice in the world. So there are far more online buyers who might be aware of a shop presence who'll be coming to Bath in any case, but that's a detail. I want to come to Anne-Marie James, long-standing Bath institution of Rossiter's. She makes the point, shopping used to be a social leisure activity, and of course for many it still is, but Gen Z have grown up with e-commerce and naturally default to shopping online. How can bricks and mortar retailers attract the next generation to the benefits and value of service in particular? That's a tough one. I mean, that is in some ways the single biggest question here, that we're individually, we're pulled and pushed in both directions, between efficiency but also thoughtfulness and helpfulness that the best retailers can provide.
I would say, I think there's a very interesting, if we take e-commerce and also physical retail, let's take e-commerce and beauty. That segment, I think, is best online in creating communities. And the millennials and that generation we're talking about, those people are in that type of communities. They talk on that type of communities. They interact. They post their content. They rate products. So coming back to the question, is it possible to bring, because you have people in these communities that becomes ambassadors or almost influencers, can you bring these people into your physical store and also get that connection from that environment? I think you can actually bring that generation into the store as well, and they will also meet in physical. So I think that can be done. I strongly believe it would add value. But of course, they are more digital native because they're born up with an iPhone or a smartphone. They don't know anything else. So in that sense, but I think you can take that type of community and bring it back into the store and make some magic.
Makes some magic. I realise we've got 50 minutes to go. This is absolutely flown. I want to come to the point about, and we do have a question from Roundtable Roastery and Twitch, which I'll come back to in a sec. This point about academia as a service, and particularly around the course you've got coming up in 2023. But Jens, if you frame it this way, what is the role of the University of Bath, specifically at the School of Management, with retail? How, and perhaps almost as interestingly, how can you help? In which ways can you help retailers?
Well, I'd like to start by saying that when I started to work in retail, it was actually on Valentine's Day, 1993. I got my first job in retail. And at that time, I didn't think that I would stay in retail because I was, fostered in academia. And like I said, I hadn't read any books or anything about retail, but I was fascinated by how influential you could be as in the store when you built displays, and you could really influence purchase behavior. And I thought that was, both from a philosophical and psychological standpoint, very interesting. So I started to look deeper into how can you study this. And from there, I was sort of sent out from the retail industry to explore if we could start schools and doing academic research and so on retailing. So I built a couple of schools like that around Europe, especially Northern Europe, Finland, Sweden, Norway, the Baltics. And I really think that the School of Management and the retail lab that I run, we could be used as a shop window to the academic world, where you can sort of use us, because we have studied retail operations, both from the store floor, from the head offices at retail companies, and from an academic perspective. And basically all our research is made in the field. So we do field experiments, and we need partners to play with there. So I think, as I see it, academia would be nothing without the surrounding businesses. And I think more researchers should actually open their arms to any kind of interaction between academia and the industry. And I would really like, I work a lot with the big chains because it's easier to make experiments there, but I would really like to have more interaction with local retailers and see, what do you want from the School of Management or from the university? Do you want seminars? Do you want us to train your staff? Do you want us to just organize workshops where you can benchmark each other? Do you want to talk to retailers from other areas? We could organize meetings like that. So I would honestly, we got the question here earlier, what would you ask your customers? And I'm saying, you are our customers. What can we give you?
Well, there we go. I think it's a very clear call out to retailers watching this. And if there's a role for us with Bath Life in helping promote that what can work on a large chain, bigger sector basis, some of those precepts, some of those insights absolutely will work from an independence point of view as well. Someone running a store on Milton Street, what can they learn? And I'll put words into some of their mouths, as it were. I can imagine for them to have the equivalent of mystery shoppers just at that level, diagnosing how their stores operate, the flow, the shape, the colors, everything, the psychology of them would be very valuable. But if retailers do wish to get involved with university, please do either contact us or Jens directly. We'll be following up with an email beyond that. But Jens, you also have this program, this event later next year. Do you want to talk about that? What, when, why, how do you get involved?
I took that program the first time, 1998, and then it was together with a retail chain that both Fredrik and I have worked with for decades. ICA, Sweden's largest retailer. And it's a fantastic program. It's run by two American universities, the second oldest after Harvard University in the US, William and Mary, Virginia, and Babson College, which is #1 in the world in entrepreneurship. So they have a bunch of professors who run a totally fantastic retail management or strategic retailing program. So you will learn to optimize your store spaces. You will learn to prioritize among various KPIs to really run a profitable business. You will see sort of the code of retailing, if you wish. And I need to educate my faculty in this in these modules. So therefore, I have invited over these professors to come here to Bath to give the program to us, but they refuse to have only academics in the audience because they think academics are too lazy and too stupid. They want quick thinking, agile and ambitious people. So therefore, we're also inviting retailers. And the idea is to have around a third of all the students, as we want local retailers. And it's going to be for free for local retailers. It's going to be very expensive for the big brands who send their people over. But for you locals, it's going to be for free. So it's going to be a 4.5-day program. You need to be fully committed. It takes time, but it's also extremely rewarding, I promise you.
And that's in the summer of next year. Do you have a date just yet?
It's going to be in approximately 1 year. We haven't really decided on the date yet because we have some things that we need to figure out first, but count on it to be around November.
Yeah, well, as mentioned, we'd love to play our part in that. The idea of, and it's almost to your point, going from theory, and I know it's deeper than solely theory, but theory to practice, that blend of the two, I think is really interesting. We are coming towards the end of this time, but I want to pick up a point from Anne at Round Hill Roastery, which touches on the way that the social glue of retail and traffic flows and so on. What role does traffic and car parking space and charges, how does that impact city centre retailing? Round Hill is an online only, but nonetheless, she's selling to retailers, I guess, as well.
Yeah. No, it's obvious. I mean, it's obvious. It has a huge effect. I was thinking about the new Morrison's, the Market Kitchen opening. I mean, they're going to be limited to people buying at most 2 bags, meaning, I don't know, 20 pounds or something. So that's it's the first thought when I moved to Bath 3 years ago was how could we increase parking spaces? I know that's not the most beautiful, but to really increase volume buying, you need to be able to transport what you buy home. So there's a reason for external shopping centers being the major growth or driving factor behind the growth in retailing. If you don't have your car or if it's not really accessible from the store, it's always going to be a limitation. You can sort it by having home delivery or stuff like that, but it's always going to be an extra cost, and so it's problematic. It's problematic.
Conversely, isn't there some research which is code for, I know I read it and I couldn't find where it was, that suggests a paradox that retailers fear that trade will drop if there are restrictions on cars, people won't be able to take their goods home, as you say, and therefore resist it. And yet that research also indicates that trade, in some cases, absolutely increases where cars are limited. The vast majority of city centre purchases are carryable. Footfall increases when destinations are proper destinations, not thoroughfares. Your thoughts?
That might be so. And if there is evidence, I wouldn't go against it. And I haven't read that report. But I think in retail, you sometimes talk about sort of density and how an increased number of square meters of sales space drives footfall or traffic. And going back to this Swedish case, which has been quite prominent here today, there's only one city center in the entire country of Sweden that has a strong enough pull to be able to survive external shopping centers, and that's Stockholm. And obviously Stockholm has a lot to show except for just the shopping. So you also have a rich restaurant life. You have lots of beautiful buildings and stuff to see, museums to visit and so on. And then you might be able to have that kind of attraction power. So you, again, like in any store, shoppers come, they spend a lot of time. So they also, part of that time is spent shopping. Otherwise, I think the convenience of the car and big car park and then the surrounding sort of stores is the winner. That's the typical winner. So, and it's, yeah, so typically you would see people need the car to buy at least volume. Then, of course, high margin stuff, that's more perhaps something you buy just a little, very expensive and so on. That can be perhaps more of a high street kind of product.
Yeah, and a more enjoyable environment with more footfall in the physical sense. Football will of itself help trigger.
And Bath has a lot of, you know, attractive buildings and attractive scenery. So just having people spend time there will also increase, of course, the shopping. And you can see it, I guess, if you look at the assortment in the stores, that it's not at all the typical kind of assortment that you would expect in a mall or galleria. It's much more of the little things, little expensive things that you buy as a reminder or
more bespoke.
Yeah.
More bespoke. Okay, we are coming towards the end. I'm aware that some of your research over time has yielded some great insights in terms of, or indeed paradoxes sometimes, of from color to store layout to range. Talk us through some of the most illuminating or surprising. Isn't one about an anti-clockwise flow will yield greater sales than a clockwise flow? Is that true? If so, why?
You know, there are many things that people do without realizing. So if you open up, or a third of, or 34% of how people move depends on space and light. So I could arrange a store layout in a way so I know or control exactly where people stop, where they look right, where they look left, and so on. And one of those things that are fascinating is that 80% of all people are right-handed. So if you have and if you touch something, you want it. So if you want it to a greater extent, because that triggers brain, you activate your brain and therefore want to possess the item. So if you have your hand along the wall, you will touch more items and then you will buy more. So we have managed, we compared, it was over 100,000 shopping trips in different kinds of stores with similar assortment, prices and layouts, but it was either counterclockwise or the clockwise sort of racetrack. And the average transaction was approximately 10% higher if you had a counterclockwise route, because then you walked with your hand towards the walls and you touched more products and bought them.
Who knew? Fredrik, you're nodding to this. It concurs with your experience, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working for quite a long time together, me and Jens. So of course we discussed this previously, and yeah, it's crazy, but it's true. Yeah.
What about it's a big topic, but the psychology of color is changing color, or changing color of itself, does that aid sales? But are there particular colors which either do or strongly don't work in terms of prompting sales?
Yeah, if you look at my screen right now, you can see that I wear a dark shirt and it's a white or bright background. So the eye consists of cones and rods, and the rods are faster than the cones, and the rods detect from black to white. So the fastest kind of color is just brightness contrast from black to white, and that's why newborn babies respond to bright lights and so on. So that your brain is instructed to respond to brightness contrast first. But then when it comes to hue, from warm to cold colors, from red to blue, you also have different abilities to pick up those things. So the warmer the color, the more short-wave colors are, you respond to them faster. So in a reddish environment, you breathe faster, you raise your body temperature, hair rise on your arms and so on. So you respond to anything red quicker and more promptly than to anything blue or green, meaning that packages and logos could rather be red than blue or green because they attract more attention. There's a reason why stop traffic lights are red and not green. Whereas you don't want red in the background, you don't want red on the walls, you don't want red on anything that should serve a background kind of purpose, because then it steals attention away from the products. So we've managed to show that you can lose as much as 75% of the sales of more expensive technological things if you have red walls, because the walls stand out and consume the attention before you even get to see the TV or computer or whatever it is.
Absolutely fascinating. And Fredrik, I'm going to hazard something about one of your key areas, one of your key clients, McDonald's, and the fast food area. Is it the case that, I have no idea, if the much harsher bright lights, typically in fast food places, are there to encourage you to stay as little as possible and to move out and get on? Is that part of the psychology at play there, or is that complete twaddle?
I haven't tried that one out, so I can't answer that question, but it's quite evident that, no, I don't know. Sorry.
As a very candid answer, I actually quite admire that. I mean, in truth, we don't know. I think, you've explored an awful lot of topics here. I would absolutely stress to anyone watching this, please do. There's been an absolute clear plea, really, from Jens to engage with the university. There are both ways around. Dynamic, interesting, useful insights which can aid business that you will benefit from. The other way around, the university will also benefit from engaging with retailers and understanding as practitioners in the city of Bath what it is like to trade in this environment. And there's a whole lot of stuff we haven't talked about automatic checkouts and a variety of different points about the technology, which perhaps we'll come back to at some other point. And indeed, the sort of healthiness of brands and how people have this dichotomy between what they think about, what they want to buy and what they actually buy. And we're all marginally self-delusional. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to give a last summation to this. Given that there'll be many independents watching this, and they'll be operating, frankly, under their own steam, without directors of strategy and faraway head offices and so on, what advice can you give them, more than you've had given so far, about appealing to customers in both a physical store and an online business?
Jens, I will leave that to you because I need to leave. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Thank you very much for today.
It's been great, Fredrik. Thank you.
Thank you, Fredrik.
Thank you.
I'm thinking, coming back to that question that we got from someone, what does the customer want? So I think it boils down to that. People spend approximately 4 hours per day on their smartphones. So what we do, for instance, in my store is that we know that a very good way to make people behave differently is to give them some kind of discount. So we before we even open the store, we set up a Facebook account and an Instagram account, and more lately also Snap account. But we put all our promotion codes on there as QR codes, and we scan those at the till, and that's a very good way to interact with our shoppers. So we have 4,000 or something who follow us or constantly see us in the feed. So we have that very quick way of being able to communicate with our shoppers. So I think depending on what your audience is or who your customer is, you need to sort of find a simple way to make it work both online and offline. And many times I think an entrepreneurial mindset is key. So my co-director at the grocery store, for instance, he called me and said, well, I have this new channel now. Okay, what's that? Well, we put vending machines in big offices around the store, and now that's 15% of the sales volume. So you have to be open to, entrepreneurial, I think, moves. And it can be, don't be locked It's only of all e-commerce sales, only 1% comes from social media. So don't just look at the stories or sort of the news and think this is the solution for you. Try to keep an eye on your own business. Who's your customer and how can you service them? Because that makes more sense. And it's often very simple solutions. That's sort of like using Facebook as a CRM system. That's what we do. And it's really, really profitable. So I think don't make it too difficult. It's not that hard, but reflect a bit and try to change and challenge your old way of thinking.
Well, I think it's a great point to end on, and just to, in a sense, summarize some of your points there. It seems to me there's 3 E's at play. One is that entrepreneurial sensibility. 2 is to experiment, and 3 is to engage. And that seems to me, some of the key messages coming over this morning. And on your behalf, we've had a couple of thank yous, which I do just want to say. Anne-Marie at Ross is saying, thought-provoking session. Thank you. Would love to meet Jens to discuss how the university might help with my vision for rosters. Come on, there's a I was about to say marriage made in heaven, that's a bit much, but there's an opportunity.
Yes.
It's such an iconic place, huge retailer as Rossiter's. It, of course, navigating the physical environment, but also its online offering as well. And Anne at Roundhill Roastery as well. Thank you both for a great session. I would like to thank you, our 2 Bath Life Business Surgery speakers today, Jens Nordfält and Fredrik Holmvik, and of course, to the University of Bath School of Management. Thanks for all of your time and questions at this special session, which will be up on our Bath Life YouTube channel shortly. And more generally, thanks for your support for Bath Life. Please don't forget that special Bath Life Awards How to Benefit webinar, of course, including retailers. We want all forms of retailers to engage with the awards. So there we are, we're done. This has been a Media Clash production, and this has been our latest Bath Life Business Surgery. Thank you. Bath together. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.